All right, howdy everyone, and welcome to our newly restarted webinar series. My name is Jenna Crabtree. I'm currently the advisor for the Aggie Grotto and members of the Greater Houston and Underground Texas Grotto. And I'm currently working on my master's at A&M in park management. So behind me is a whole team of NSS volunteers that have been working super hard to bring this series to you. People like Paula Hansen and Emily Davis and Devris Hayer for getting this started. So going forward, we're going to be hosting bi-monthly webinars for the goal of sharing educational information about caves and karst. Each webinar is going to feature a different topic to keep everyone interested, and that way we're not always doing the same thing. So congrats on finding your way here. We're going to be using the same procedure for the rest of the webinars. So you'll register like normal, and then you'll get sent the link. Um, just going forward, some housekeeping rules. Please put the state that you live in. I don't care where you live, I'm not that interested, but it does cut down on some time when admitting all of you to this webinar through the NSS directory. Um, so if you're wondering how to find out about webinars and you're not sure when the dates are, you can look in the NSS News. We're going to have a standing advertisement there, courtesy of the two guys that keep that running. Our Facebook page, member emails, and under events on the caves.org page, which hopefully everyone here is familiar with. And then after this webinar is taken place, it will be put on the NSS YouTube channel so everyone can view it, not just members. And make sure you subscribe to the channel as well so you'll know that if you missed a webinar, you'll know when it's been posted. So for our first webinar, we wanted to answer questions we frequently get from members. What does the NS do and what is the value of membership? Here today to help us walk through that is Pete Johnson, chair of the NSS board, and he'll also provide a quick organizational update at the end of the webinar and have time for questions. I'll mention this later, but during the question portion, um, everyone be on their best behavior because I'm nervous and I don't want to kick anyone out. Um, so also just if you do have a question, make sure to utilize the React feature. You can find that at the bottom of your Zoom bar to raise your hand, or you can type your question in the chat, whichever works best for you. But that way we're not all talking over each other and we can all have an enjoyable experience. But with that being said, I'll hand it over to Pete.
Hey everybody, how's it going? For those who don't know me, I'm Pete Johnson. I'm the current chair of the NSS board. I'm stepping in here for Emily Davis, who's our current conservation and science division head. And also our old AVP, who, for those who are familiar with the officer position, she's fortunate enough, I think, to be in Greece. So yeah, you're stuck with me instead. Um, for those of you who are members, this might be a little bit familiar territory to cover, but this does end up on the website as well after the fact for general consumption. So we did think it'd be good to just give a high level overview of what the NSS is doing, and then I'll stop for questions, and then we can talk about the organizational restructuring and stop again for a second set of questions. So let's see if we can kick this off. So yeah, I mean, high level, the sort of shorthand for the mission statement has always been we explore,
Marilyn,
we
can you
study, and
help
we
me here?
I think we've got somebody who's unmuted. So the shorthand of the mission statement is we explore, we study, and we protect caves, and we also are dedicated to fellowship among cavers. If you want to take a look at the full if you want to take a look at the full strategic plan, it's at caves.org/strategic plan. The new bylaws, we went through a whole entire bylaws rewrite to reduce the bylaws from 650 pages down to 60 or something like that, are also available there. Generally, all of that information is available on the member pages on the website. So if you go to caves.org, you click member page in the top right, it'll prompt you with this login dialog, which if you've never done it before is NSS plus your NSS number and zip code. It'll give you this page, which has, bylaws, blog minutes, strategic plan, budgets, financial documents. It also contains the instructions for how to get website hosting if you're a grotto, and a whole bunch of other
I
resources.
tried this.
I think they
Um, so what is a grotto? Obviously, these are kind of the heart of our fellowship mandate as a organization. We have about 200 local chapters. You're probably already aware of what your local grotto is, but if you're not, it's a great way to start get caving. And we have a full list of all of them on caves.org/find a grotto. But they're all over the country. There's even a couple international ones, and they're sort of the core focus of how we get new members and how we fulfill that fellowship component of our membership of our mission statement. Another big part of the NSS is obviously our annual convention. It's a week-long event that's usually about 1,200 to 1,400 people a year. It's a great time to go caving, to meet new cavers. We have both scheduled and informal cave trips. Cave-specific vendors that sell caving gear show up, which, usually that type of stuff's hard to find in person. If you don't want to cave all week, there's workshops and sessions on pretty much every cave-related topic you could think of: biology, hydrology, geology, cave diving, rigging. There's vertical sessions. There's cave photography. There's a vertical competition. It's a little bit of everything. A little bit of partying, just a little bit. It ends at the Friday night in the annual awards banquet. We have student scholarships available for that, with a priority of giving those to those who are presenting at convention. And new members also get $40 off. So if you don't um, know about either of those and you're interested, just email nss@caves.org and we can point you in the right direction. Just to flag one quick thing, there's a pre-registration, early registration deadline of April 10th here. That actually, the price goes up a little bit after that. So if you want to get that $275 price, that's the deadline that you got to get registered by. We also have a whole bunch of regional events. They're sort of like convention on a smaller scale if you're not used to them. You can go caving again, meet cavers. There's different workshops. Some of them are more social, some of them are more focused on technical topics. But you can find them if you go to caves.org/events. If you want to submit a caving related event, there's also a button there that'll let you do that. One big thing we did manage to do this year that we're actually pretty excited about is providing NSS national level insurance to these regional events. Insurance is like a big complaint and feedback we've gotten from the regional level. So we were able to extend our national policy to cover that. Training and education, again, central part of that mission statement is education. Members get discounts on two of our national level training commissions, which is the National Cave Rescue Commission, which is essentially the only organization in the United States focused on cave rescue training. We've also recently launched Vertical Training Commission, which teaches cavers that are new to vertical caving the rope work and technical skills necessary to do that type of activity. They recently actually published a book, Basic Vertical Caving Techniques. That book is actually sold out almost immediately its first run, but we're reprinting. We're working towards republishing and rewriting On Rope, which is sort of a standard for broader vertical caving techniques. And we have a number of other books available that are training or education focused, including a book on cave conservation, which I'll talk about in a little bit. There's books on cave rescue, cave survey, SPAR, pretty much you name it. We probably have a book on the topic if it's conservation or education related. We also have educational brochures and webinars and displays that are available for use if you're trying to present that information elsewhere. Those resources are available both as PDFs and hard copies. If you call the front office, they will actually ship you brochures if you need them. We get those distributed kind of all over the place in show caves. And they're good resources for, hey, here's like a really quick, easy visual guide to certain things related to education, conservation, caving, including like a minimum impact guide. So yeah, a lot of that stuff, if you go to caves.org/education, you can find. Speaking of publications, we also publish a surprising number of monthly publications or yearly publications. The big one is NSS News. That's sort of a general news publication about caving that's published monthly. That's available to members. We also have an accident or incident journal called American Caving Accidents that collects data on caving accidents in order to learn from them. We publish a scientific journal, which is the Journal of Cave and Karst Studies. It's a peer-reviewed journal. I think it's probably the only peer-reviewed journal that I'm aware of that's about caving and karst studies. There's also a couple ones that are pretty interesting, maybe less focused on, but Nylon Highway, which is on vertical techniques. The Journal of Speleological History, if you're not familiar with it, is a great one that's got some pretty deep content. And convention guidebooks, which are often great resources for regions caving information. Those become available, after convention is done. All this stuff is available online. You can search kind of all these publications. If you're a member and you log in, you can get access to all those as well. We do publish a number of other sort of audio-visual content at caves.org/AV library. That includes some video programs, Luminary series, which is, pioneering cave explorers, karst scientists, and other longtime NSS members will often give sort of keynote speeches at convention. That's what those are. Those are up there. Other webinars besides this, which includes, some other video content that's on the NSS's YouTube channel. And then the salons, which are cartography, photography, fine arts, all these different sort of artistic cave related disciplines will have a salon at the convention every year, and that content is on the website as well. And then there's also a great, virtual cave if you're looking for descriptions of cave formations and photos. You can kind of click on them and get a little deeper information too. Grants, we now give out about $45,000 in grants and scholarships a year. Those are all focused around the mission statement objectives. So they're given out for education, exploration, science, all sorts of stuff. If you go to caves.org/NSS-grants, there's a description of what those are handed out for and how you apply. I often push people to apply. I think especially when you're a new member, it seems like they're not that obtainable, but especially some of those exploration grants can be like a really significant financial impact for cave projects and exploration. Another one that's sort of gotten grants in the past, you can see, is Cave Sim, which is a mobile sort of cave simulation that people can go in to sort of understand and learn about cave environments. They've also received funding through those grants. Another big membership benefit, especially if you're sort of the person who says, I want the real financial transaction, how do I get my money back? There's really quite good gear discounts for members. Some of those are through cave-specific vendors like Intermountain Outfitters or On Rope or Highline. They will give you significant discounts like gear, but we also participate in a program called Expert Voice, which extends pro deals to NSS members. There's a ton of major brands that are on Expert Voice, Garmin, Oakley, Columbia, Mountain Hardwear, Merrill, almost any brand you can think of. And it's usually a fairly significant discount if you're an NSS member. I don't think I threw the link up, but if you just Google NSS Expert Voice, we have a page written up about how to redeem that Expert Voice Pro deals. They have a whole website. So it's a pretty significant benefit. NSS Cave Preserves, we own 19 cave preserves nationwide, and we manage 4 preserves that are owned by others. Obviously that's a central component of our conservation mission statement objective, but they're unique underground places that members can also visit. If you go to caves.org/preserves, you can see those. We now have an online permit system to visit those, which makes the process a little bit easier. But membership dollars help support both existing preserves and also acquisitions of new preserves. And we distribute about $10K a year to other conservancies to help them with acquisition costs for preserves that they have purchased as well. Conservation and science is another big part of our mission objective. Our membership dollars support a number of those initiatives. I previously mentioned science grants, but we also sort of support a network of experts in conservation task forces, which focus on specific regional conservation issues. And there's a number of, again, online resources. We publish both online and in print. Cave Conservation and Restoration, which is a 600-page book focused on the topic. That's available on the website if you go to caves.org/conservation. There's, again, minimum impact caving guidelines, a number of other brochures that we distribute to help educate people on proper conservation techniques. And finally, we work with the National Cave and Karst Management Team to host the biennial symposium. If you haven't been, it's a meeting between karst scientists, land managers, and other people that are interested in managing the cave and karst land. That happens every 2 years. This year is actually in October in Ely, Nevada. That was one I didn't know the NSS even participated in until had been a member for quite some time. It's an awesome event if you have any interest in that type of stuff too. We had a little formatting issue here, but this says headquarters and conference center. Um, we have a wholly owned headquarters in Huntsville, Alabama that houses our office, library, and museum. I'm a particularly big fan of the library and archives. I think that's another one that people don't realize it exists. It has books and caving publications from all over the world. I'd like highly recommend stopping by if you have a chance. Um, the office is also where uh, our paid staff, our facilities manager Jarvis Scruggs, and our membership coordinator Esther Crawford work there. You'll often get them on the phone if you call. They're there to kind of help support membership. There's caves on the property. It's actually the Stevenson Preserve, and right down the street are our old offices, which are on the Shelta Cave Preserve as well. So there's caves in the area. Um, you can camp on the land if you're a member. So there's resources to stay there if you'd like. And it's also going to be the new site of our Bill Cunnington Memorial Vertical Tower once it's constructed for training and practice for vertical rope work. So just to summarize, and I'm doing pretty good on time here, so hopefully we don't run out of time for questions. Um, membership dollars support publications, they support NSS Nature Preserves, they support events and that fellowship component of our mission statement. Two national level training organizations. They support research and science grants, and those grants are also available to membership. And you get significant membership discounts as well. So it's a lot. We are a big organization, but it's rewarding, and I think personally it's a great way to get involved as a caver. So um, as I mentioned, I will go ahead and also just hop ahead and talk about restructuring the organization, which is a big initiative we've taken the last few years. But I would pause here just to ask if anybody has any questions about membership benefits.
Pete, I have a question. Maybe you could go over membership categories or just kind of tell people about various membership categories, including life and conservation life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you flagged that, Val, because I think I missed. There is also an introductory membership price uh, for new members too, for younger members. Yeah, membership dues are $40. If you want a print copy of the NSS News, it's 10 extra dollars. That's a regular membership. We also have pricing available for families. So if it's all within one household, that's an option as well. There's also a conservation level membership, which has an additional, I'd have to look up the amount, Val. You might know it offhand. And then there's a similar class structure for the life members. So life member is a single one-time fee. You don't have to pay membership dues for the remainder of your life, but the conservation one, it also exists too. So there's a conservation level for the life member too. And then as I mentioned, I think it's, if you're joining as a new member under 25, we have an introductory membership price of $20.
Yes, that's correct. Um, all you do is you have to call the NSS headquarters in order to receive that benefit. Um, I did it for my boyfriend earlier today. We were on the phone for about less than 10 minutes. He's already gotten his membership email, so it's super easy. And, the price cut is really nice.
Any other questions there? Cool. I can hop ahead to the leadership or the restructuring. So as you guys have probably all heard, and we'll stop for questions about this stuff too after, the society is restructured since last July. So as of July 1st of this year, um, we restructured the organization in anticipation of hiring an executive director for the first time. So the current org chart, this says proposed, but it actually is in effect. We're now managed by 12 directors, similar to the old board. Part of those directors are appointed and part of them are elected. So previously the officers were appointed to the board. So we now have 9 board members elected, reappointed. Um, they will oversee an executive director that will then oversee 7 divisions. So, historically, we've been volunteer run since the organization was started in 1941. I would say it's almost amazing and shocking what we've accomplished as volunteers. And we've at least, especially on my time on the board, I can speak to it directly. We've had exceptionally dedicated volunteers. I think some of those workloads have historically been gotten to the point where it's difficult to expect that from a volunteer. We have multiple first officers now, division heads that are working 30 hours a week. So the restructuring to 7 divisions was sort of directly in response to that, to say, how do we cut down that volunteer workload for the people that are in those roles? Um, so that was like a primary focus, but there was a little bit of, well, can we also do some organizational sort of gains in efficiency? The one I'd flag, it's a perfect example, is communications. Historically, as the organization grew organically, various communications functions fell under multiple different officers. So, it sort of got to the point where you said, hey, we need to get something out to membership. You had to go to 3 different officers historically to get that information out. We've consolidated those functions under one person. And there's a little bit of that. We did sort of avoid what we've been referring to as shuffling the deck twice. An executive director coming in will likely, might want to take a look at changing some of this as well. So we didn't do anything too wild in terms of restructuring, other than just make some of those volunteer workloads a little bit more manageable. So we've had what I would describe as a number of exceptionally generous donations to the organization in the last 5 or 6 years. A number of those came through state donations, and because of that, the supporting an executive director financially is now much more feasible than it was, even 10 or 15 years ago. We expect to support the position entirely out of the money off of those donations. So the cost will not come out of membership dues. I think, the some of the motivation to do that was to reduce the volunteer overload. Some of it was to just increase impact. It's, as an organization of volunteers, we have some limit to what we can dedicate to the organization, but by having somebody who sees the organization or oversees the organization full time, our impact can be that much bigger. So in terms of the process that we went through, um, as I mentioned previously, we completely rewrote the bylaws to make this feasible. Um, we hired an outside search firm in order to conduct the search. We've gotten over 200 applications, and we're currently narrowing that field down internally. We sort of expect to have more information for people after our February 10th, 2025 meeting, which, like all board meetings, that's listed on the events page on the website. But after the hire, it'll still be a volunteer. The heart of the organization is still a volunteer led initiative. The board are all members. All the board members are still volunteers that are elected. So it's that is still the engine for the NSS. Um, if you want to get involved, we'd love to have you. If you go to caves.org /volunteer, there's a way to reach out and to get involved, and our volunteer coordinator can point you in the right direction. So that's kind of the high level overview. I suspect that there are a ton of questions, so I'm glad we have some time to answer them. But I see one hand up.
Hey, Pete, appreciate that. And
Yeah.
like I say, appreciate all the work of the volunteers, kind of knowing that we're a volunteer driven organization. Feel free to table this question if it's later or in another webinar, but I'm very interested in the division head training and education and training, especially in the regards of the what looks to be like an outreach effort. And my question really is, are there any canned packages available for volunteers, like out of a grotto, to be able to approach, whether it's a junior high, a high school, an outdoor club, just to be able to introduce the basics of the NSS and also be able to funnel potential folks that are interested into the grotto or the NSS? Thank you.
Yeah, so I mentioned it early, but I know this is like probably a fire hose of information, so it makes sense. But The NSS, and we've had these for quite a while. There's a number of brochures that if you call up the main office, they will send you hard copy brochures. They're also available on caves.org/education as well. And those are probably your best resource. They're trifold brochures. They get sent to show caves. They get sent to a handful of other places. I believe that they also have, like big presentation boards for if you're going to some non-caving event that they can actually ship you to use as well. Um, and those brochures are also available online too. So those are probably the three biggest resources. Uh,
Yeah.
Paula oversees the education department. She's on the call. You've heard her talk a couple times. I don't know if I miss any resources there, Paula.
That's right, Pete. Good information. We are updating the billboards. So we'll have a new set of those available soon. And then I wanted to point out that Jenna's got several ideas for future webinars, and she wants to do one specifically directed at new members, right? Jenna, you want to talk about that?
Yes, ma'am. In the fall, we plan to do kind of an intro to caving, intro to conservation webinar. Um, the reason we're choosing the fall is because this is when a lot of our college grottos or associated college clubs are picking up new members in the fall, as well as high schools. There are a few high schools throughout America who also have caving clubs as well. That way we can kind of bring them into the fold and start them off on the right foot. And then hopefully they'll become NSS members and, we'll see them at convention and things like that.
And that'll be posted on YouTube. That'll be recorded just like tonight and posted on YouTube.
Great, thank you. And just one maybe follow-up question. Do we have any audio, visual, computer presentations, PowerPoints available?
There's PowerPoints as well. I don't know if those are currently up on the website, but if you email Dave Saki, I believe Dave Saki can, and I can get you his email after if you don't have it, or it's in the member directory as well. Yeah, he's probably the person to ask, unless Paula, you're aware of another resource.
No, and Don, I'm reviewing a lot of that information too. There's a lot to go over, but if you see anything that you're like, oh, this is kind of outdated, please feel free to email me or call me or text me, and I can update that. Thank you.
No other questions. I mean, I guess I'll say I think it's like a really exciting time for the NSS. I mean, we after quite a bit of years of decline, membership has ticked up for the last 4 years. We're back up to 8,500 members. We're in really good financial shape. There's a lot of really dedicated volunteers. A lot of things that are there's a lot going on. We've launched an entire training program in the last year or two. So it feels like a really exciting time to be involved with the NSS.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
I actually started caving about 1968, and then I got inducted into the military. I got drafted, and I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And while I was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, I started doing a lot more caving there. Just to give you an idea, this is all the caving pictures. They're all black and white that I took back then from multiple caves all over the area. And I also have large numbers of 2x2 slides that I took because I'm a biologist and I did all my early research work on cave animals. Is the NSS interested in getting these slides and such and making images of them?
I actually think they probably would be. The person to contact is Ed Strausser. He's actually the archivist and the guy in the library. They do. I wasn't exaggerating. I mean, if you haven't seen that library, it's great. It's all sorts of information like that, and he gets requests of that nature fairly frequently, and he can answer, whether they want them. I suspect they would. Yeah.
What's his last name?
Strausser. It's Strausser. It's either, don't quote me off the top of my head, it's either archives or archive@caves.org. But if you have issues, just email me at pete@caves.org and I'll dig it up for you.
Okay. You can see who I am. You have my email and you could just send me an email so we can get connected up.
Yeah, sure. I can go ahead and do that. Let me just make a note of that one.
I don't live that far from Huntsville, so I could come over and work with any folks that wanted to work with me and stuff.
I've got it down. I've got the name. I'll put you both on an email.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions, or I can turn it back over to Jenna? I got one. I see Val. Val, do you have your hand up?
Let me see if I can make my hands up.
Okay, so, hey, Pete, tell us a little where we are or process on executive director.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, we got about 200 applications, and we're currently narrowing that field down internally. I think we're going to have more information after the February 10th meeting. But we're in that process, and we're kind of on the home stretch. The internal search committee, because we had an outside search firm, it's sort of finalizing. They're, kind of doing the final work on that process. So hopefully, I have more news after the February meeting for you all.
Right. And if anybody has a question they'd like to put in the chat, remember that's up and we don't see a lot of activity in it, but you can also make comments or ask questions over in the chat bar.
I would have a question regarding our collaborations as NSS with other organizations. Like last year, there was a collaboration announced with the Forest Service. What is the status of this? I think it's called Memorandum of Understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, so we do have a number of MOUs with which is a memorandum of understanding. People always ask me, what does an MOU mean? What does it do? And sometimes the sort of shorthand that I say is it's sort of just a way of saying, hey, we're friends and we want to work together. The one with the Forest Service that was signed last year is a little bit more detailed and engaged. It's known as a master participating agreement, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it actually provides a financial framework for local grottos to partner with local forests and receive funds from the Forest Service in order to do volunteer work, whether that's exploration or conservation, or there's a whole number, obviously, of initiatives that the NSS does with those land management agencies. But that one has been exciting because we've seen a number of grottos actually utilize that to develop more formal relationships with the partner, with the Forest Service at the local level. We have similar MOUs with the Park Service and BLM and a number of other organizations as well. We recently signed one actually with National Park System in Vietnam, and I think it's actually technically the National Level Institute of Geology is who the agreement's with, and then a number of other organizations too. Some of those, it's the piece of paper is nice. It's important and it helps build that relationship, but it also takes two people on either side of that organization to build that relationship for it to actually see gains. Another one I'll mention that we've signed the last couple of years is one with the Explorers Club in New York. That's been fairly active. We have liaisons now. We had our board meeting there at the NSS last March. They host an annual event that's a series of speaker engage a day of basically speeches and presentations that deal with dark places. So obviously a number of those are caver-led presentations. So yeah, that's off the top of my head, that's sort of where we're at with all of those.
Thank you. We are trying to establish a more project-based relationship with the Forest Service here in North Carolina, but it basically requires that we develop a project so that it has a little bit more solid foundation. But I hope maybe over this year or the next year, we will have something much more profound.
Yeah, and that's partially what the goal of signing that agreement was that it might help you, if it's an effort of the local grotto to go to the Forest Service locally and say, this MPA exists, like we'd like to operate under this. I mean, just as like a personal example, I've run a caving project in conjunction with the Forest Service in Wyoming for got 9 years now or something. And like after the MPA was signed, they asked us to rewrite our agreement under the MPA because the Forest Service was like, this is a better way for us to do it. So it's like I said, sometimes those MOUs get signed, and if there's not two people to push the relationship forward, it's not as big of a deal as it seems like it might be. But that MPA has been pretty impactful. So if you want info on that, again, email me and I'll put you in touch with somebody who can help say, here's how it can be utilized and here's how to communicate it to the local Forest Service.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, we had an outreach from the local Forest Service contact who's responsible for caves and mines in that area. So, like I said, we are in progress of trying to develop a project so that we have something more than we had already, or some of the grottos in North Carolina had already smaller projects with the Forest Service, but we hope that it's a little bit more encompassing of a larger area. I always kid and tell my grotto members what better than having a good relationship with a big landowner, which would allow us to go at least have a nice hike in the forest without asking or getting asked too many questions.
Right. Yeah, New Mexico, the Forest Service reached out there as well. The the we're also in communication with like a number of regional and national parks about access issues as well. The government liaison committee's been in contact with Carlsbad Caverns, for instance, which due to a number of issues has had less exploration or recreational access in the last few years. There was a push. It wasn't just the NSS, but there were a number of caving organizations that pushed to get Region 8 in the US back open again recently. But many of those caves have been closed since White Nose came to that area in the late 2000s. So there is quite a bit of communication. I didn't really flag that in the presentation, but we do interface a lot with national land management agencies. Billy Shank Brown's not here, but private landowners, we also have an entire team that's dedicated to private landowner relations. So that's like another one side too that's similar.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? I can kick it back to you then, Jenna. See if I'll get your last slide up here.
Okay, that sounds great. If anybody has any questions that they held on to, or you think about it tonight when you're in bed, I've put mine and Pete's emails in the chat for everyone, so you know where to find us. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been a culmination of a lot of months of work. This webinar was a little bit different than what you can expect coming. So in March, we have the VTC. In May, we have, I'm going to butcher his name, but Saiwi Tyon or Tian. He's the developer of the Cavaway X1. So if you're into survey and instrumentation, please tell all of your friends. And in July, hopefully, we have Jason Belinsky, but he is a very busy man, especially during exploration season. So there might be a change there. If you have any suggestions for webinar topics that you want to see in the future or something that we're not addressing, or if you yourself want to give a presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to me by email or through social media. I'm very active on Facebook. And I think that's all I have for you. So I just want to thank you all for, tuning out of your daily life and plugging into the cave community. And I look forward to hanging out with you all next time.
Thank you, Jenna.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Pete.
Y'all spread the word.
webinar, Jenna?
Yeah,
Yes, what's the date of that next one?
I believe we're shooting for March 26th. So that's what it is right now. If anything changes, of course, I'll put it out through all of the appropriate channels. Um, but I'm very excited. VTC is becoming a really big thing, and they have a lot of really knowledgeable and passionate people working on this project. So I think they're gonna knock our socks off.
Great.
But yeah, I'll leave the meeting open just for a minute or two, just in case anybody um, wants to chat or has questions, and then I'll close it for everyone, and we'll see you in March.